Welcome to debate. Our source material today puts forward a truly controversial thesis that monumental global historical events, think JFK's assassination, the 9/11 attacks, the atomic bombings, weren't just random incidents, but were actually carefully orchestrated um, rituals driven by secret societies.
It certainly is a profound framework. It forces you to look beyond the standard historical explanations, beyond conventional causality.
Exactly. And the core of this framework really it rests on numerical and geographical patterns, specifically around the number 33. So the question for us today is whether this powerful consistency, which the text details, provides, sufficient evidence to conclude these events were intentionally designed, executed as esoteric spectacles. Spectacles aimed at achieving specific geopolitical and spiritual control. The author even frames the ultimate goal as the replacement of God with man.
Right, and that's fundamentally where I have to push back. While the patterns are, well, they're undeniably complex, even resonant, I argue they're more likely the result of selection bias, pattern matching, maybe, and of course the pervasive cultural significance of the number 33 itself, rather than hard operational evidence of some ritualistic plot guiding world events.
See, I maintain that the sheer consistency of the number 33 and the 33rd parallel across these world-altering milestones, it demands an explanation rooted in something more organized, something symbolic and orchestrated. Let me lay out the case for intent. The events themselves are clearly visual performances, right? Modern rituals. JFK's assassination was filmed publicly. 9/11 was a globally televised spectacle. This suggests an intent beyond just, say, political expediency. It feels like it's about implanting deep, collective symbols.
That's a compelling observation, I'll grant you that. But identifying a public spectacle as maybe a tool of propaganda or psychological impact is very different from concluding it's an occult ritual. The symbolism, well, it has to be shown to be the cause of the action, doesn't it? Not just a resonant byproduct that we notice afterward.
But the symbolism is just too deliberate, it's too specific to ignore that causal link. The numerology alone is striking. JFK assassinated on 11/22, November 22nd, which mathematically sums to 33. This links directly, the material argues, to the alleged orchestrators, Freemasonry, with its 33 degrees of initiation, a symbolic structure it claims for the path to enlightenment and self-mastery.
I'm sorry, but I just don't quite buy that the simple summation of a date automatically proves a high-level conspiracy. Let me explain why. The number 33 is, well, it's culturally saturated. We know it has profound religious significance. Jesus is often said to have lived for 33 years. There are 33 vertebrae in the human spine, 33 appearances of Elohim in Genesis. The list goes on. This pre-existing symbolic power could easily explain its recurrence. It suggests that if a powerful figure were looking for symbolic resonance, 33 would be a natural choice, sure. But that choice might be driven by tradition or even an unconscious cultural association, not necessarily an operational mandate from some secret cabal.
Okay, traditional resonance is one thing, but operational convergence is another level. And that convergence is really solidified by the figure of Harry Truman. The material points out he was the 33rd president, and, significantly, a 33rd degree Freemason. The man who authorized the atomic bombings. His action, this transformation of matter through nuclear power, is arguably the ultimate modern expression of mastery of creative powers. You simply cannot dismiss the 33rd man of the 33rd degree, ushering in humanity's greatest destructive and creative force as mere coincidence.
Well, while the Truman connection is certainly the most evocative data point you've raised, the argument still relies on equating the symbolic meaning used within the lodge, the 33 degrees representing a spiritual journey, with the actual operational decision-making of the U.S. military and the entire government bureaucracy involved in the Manhattan Project.
But isn't that precisely the point? That the organizational structure, perhaps through key individuals, is designed to embed that symbolic intent into operational reality.
Yet, we have extensive historical documentation detailing the, frankly, pragmatic, political, and military rationale for choosing Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Factors like military infrastructure, terrain, visibility, weather. The assertion that some esoteric goal of mastering creative powers directly dictated Truman's decision to drop the bomb. It demands we overlook the immense internal and external pressures of ending a devastating world war. I have to contend that the decision was driven primarily by political calculus and military necessity. The symbolic overlap, however striking, feels more like a retroactive application of esoteric interpretation onto a profoundly pragmatic, if horrific, event.
I understand why you emphasize the practicalities, the bureaucracy, but if we set aside the numerology for just a moment, what about the geography? Does the 33rd parallel offer the kind of hard evidence of symbolic planning that you feel the numbers might lack?
That's a fair question and a good transition, but I think it actually highlights a central weakness in the argument.
How so? I mean, the 33rd degree north latitude, it isn't just a random line on the map. It specifically connects sites that are undeniably crucial to global history. Ancient capitals like Baghdad and Damascus, the holiest city for three major religions, Jerusalem, then the site of JFK's death in Dallas, and the definitive moments of human destruction, the Trinity site, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. This very specific alignment seems to link the birthplaces of civilization and destruction, symbolizing humanity's dawn and potential downfall along a single latitude. Surely that suggests intentional placement, a deliberate symbolic map?
It's a compelling map, I agree. It looks powerful laid out like that. But have you considered the sheer potential for, well, statistical clustering? Just pattern finding across a huge global data set? The globe is vast. While the chosen locations are undeniably significant, historically speaking, how many other significant sites fall off the 33rd parallel? Sites that are simply filtered out because they don't fit the pattern. It smacks of selection bias.
Well, filtering is inherent to any analysis, right? But the selection here seems focused on world-changing moments, events that fundamentally redefine human capability or consciousness. We're discussing the cradle of civilization, the spiritual center of the Abrahamic world, the flashpoint of the Cold War, symbolized by JFK's death, and the dawn of the nuclear age.
I'm still not convinced by that line of reasoning because as the material itself presents it, the connection is asserted as purely symbolic. It doesn't offer evidence of an operational link. We'd need to demonstrate that the 33rd parallel was somehow a planning constraint, that the symbolic geometry actually dictated the logistical choice. For instance, where's the memo, the planning document, that dictated the Trinity test had to occur at that specific latitude because of its symbolism? The material doesn't provide evidence that the latitude dictated the time or location. It merely notes the coincidence, however striking, of the coordinates after the fact.
But perhaps the symbolic constraint precedes the operational choice. Maybe these secret societies operating on a much longer, mythic timescale dictate the symbolic stage, the 33rd parallel, and then the compartmentalized political machine, Truman in the military, executes the event, ensuring it lands on that predetermined stage. We might be looking for this symbolic blueprint, not the detailed engineering schematic.
Okay, if we accept the idea of a blueprint, even hypothetically, then we have to ask why that blueprint seems, well, inconsistent. You brought up Truman and 33, which is powerful, but the author also mentions the 1969 moon landing being tied to triangular numbers, a completely different mathematical concept. If multiple, disparate numerical systems are being employed, 1122 summing to 33 for JFK, this triangular number thing for the moon landing, then the significance of 33 as some rigid, unified operational signature starts to diminish, doesn't it?
Or it could suggest a varied symbolic lexicon, a richer code, not necessarily a lack of a code altogether.
Or it suggests that the author is actively seeking out numerical patterns that fit the overarching thesis, rather than observing a strict single code that consistently drives all these disparate operations. Furthermore, this argument that these groups are obsessed with self-deification, the replacement of God with man, it needs deeper scrutiny. If that's the ultimate goal, why use such obtuse symbolic methods? Wouldn't straightforward political or military action achieve the same geopolitical outcome, say world governance, much more efficiently?
But you're focusing only on efficiency. Rituals aren't just about efficiency. They're about imprinting meaning, about embedding power and symbolism on a global scale. The events, as the material defines them, are rituals designed precisely for that purpose. The overarching goal is the deification of man, mastery over creation and destruction, culminating perhaps in a unified world government with Jerusalem as its ultimate spiritual capital. The sheer scale and the consistent symbolic themes, I argue, confirm these aren't just isolated political maneuvers, but grand, mythic performances enacting an esoteric plan.
That's certainly a powerful assertion about the ultimate mythic goal. But let's look at the means, the logistical methods for maintaining influence that the author notes: compartmentalization, strict hierarchy, blackmail even. These describe practical political coordination, methods that ensure secrecy and loyalty in any powerful siloed bureaucracy, whether it's the government, a corporation, or, yes, a secret society. These mechanisms suggest practical political control, which doesn't necessarily require symbolic dates or geographic coordinates to succeed.
I see why you emphasize the practicality of bureaucracy. Of course. But bureaucratic secrecy and symbolic orchestration aren't mutually exclusive, are they? Compartmentalization might be how the operations are executed day to day, but the symbolic code, the 33s, the 33rd parallel, could be the why and the when. It could represent the guiding esoteric vision, the ultimate constraint or intention behind it all.
But without clear evidence of that symbolic constraint being operational, we're left observing symbols that might have been present anyway, simply due to cultural saturation, as we discussed. To elevate this pattern matching, however intricate, to the level of operational intent, well, we need that missing piece of evidence, proof that the symbolic constraint actually dictated the operational choice. In the absence of that, we really must consider a more sophisticated, non-conspiratorial explanation.
And what would that explanation look like in your view?
Perhaps that high-level decision-makers, steeped as they are in Western history, culture, and tradition, are naturally influenced by mythic structures and powerful numbers like 33. They might, consciously or even unconsciously, select dates or targets that resonate culturally because those actions carry greater psychological weight for the public. Even if the primary driver for the decision remains entirely pragmatic, military, political, economic, the power of symbols is undeniable, absolutely. But harnessing that power doesn't automatically imply an occult hierarchy is pulling the strings of the military-industrial complex.
Well, reflecting on our discussion, I still maintain that the structural evidence presented, the 33rd parallel connecting civilization's dawn and potential downfall, the numerological consistency of 33 across key figures like Truman and key dates like 1122, and the text's clear articulation of a goal of self-deification, it all strongly suggests these events are interconnected. Orchestrated symbolic performances. The patterns, for me, remain too dense and too specific across such disparate historical moments to be purely the result of chance or just general cultural resonance.
And I would hold that while the patterns presented are, as I've said, undeniably complex and resonant, we must exercise rigorous caution against equating that correlation with operational intent. The material, compelling as it is, leaves open the very real possibility that this impressive symbolic synthesis is the result of a powerful, expert, but ultimately post hoc interpretation of historical facts, connecting dots that were already present, perhaps largely due to the number 33's cultural omnipresence, rather than revealing a verified, pre-existing, numerologically dictated plan.
I think we can certainly agree, though, that the source material forces us to confront the profound interplay between human spectacle, perceived destiny, and historical events. It definitely challenges our conventional understanding of historical causality.
Absolutely. It compels anyone engaging with it to analyze that relationship between symbol, history, and bureaucracy, much more closely. And it reminds us, I think, that complexity like this often requires multiple perspectives to even begin to fully appreciate it.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take some really unique, sometimes pretty challenging source material, and we try to pull out the core insights for you.
Not just summaries, but really getting into the arguments, the texture of it all.
Exactly. So you walk away informed, but hopefully not, totally overloaded.
Yeah.
And today's mission is audacious. I think that's the word.
Audacious is definitely the right word. The sources we're looking at today analyze some absolutely pivotal modern events.
Huge events. We're talking JFK's assassination, 9/11, the atomic bomb.
Right. But, and this is the key part, they analyze them through this incredibly esoteric, symbolic lens. It's not your standard history take.
No, definitely not. This isn't just politics or, standard historical analysis. We're stepping into a viewpoint presented in these sources that argues these massive global moments weren't accidents.
Not random milestones, not just sort of geopolitical chess moves.
No. The sources are making a case that these were actually highly orchestrated, intentional rituals designed, apparently, to embed specific messages deep into the collective psyche.
It's a huge reinterpretation, almost, you could say, mythological. And the sources build this theory around three specific interlocking ideas or pillars, they claim, prove this orchestration.
Okay, and those pillars are basically our roadmap for this deep dive. First, we'll focus on the idea of spectacle, how these events play out publicly.
Then the second pillar is numerology. Specifically, the number 33. It comes up again and again.
Right. That's where it gets really specific. And finally, there's this geographical link they draw, centered on the 33rd parallel north latitude.
So the whole mission today is to explore how this analysis ties these huge global events directly to, well, what the sources claim is the influence and ultimately the control vision of secret societies.
Okay, let's dive in. Pillar 1, spectacle. The sources kick things off by saying these major global incidents aren't just historical facts. They're designed for collective participation and remembrance. Modern rituals, essentially.
That's the core idea. When they use the word spectacle, it's more than just, something visible.
Right, not just a big event.
No. They're defining these incidents as deliberately staged performances, almost like theater, but on a global scale. And these performances are meant to carry specific symbols, specific power dynamics.
So what separates just an event from a ritual in this framework? How do they make that distinction?
Well, the key difference, according to the sources, is intention and effect. An event just happens. A ritual, on the other hand, is performed with a goal, usually aiming for some kind of spiritual or psychological shift.
Okay.
And these spectacles are framed as rituals because they're so meticulously visual, designed, the sources argue, to bypass rational thought and embed this deep, emotional, almost primal reaction in our collective memory.
So it's a form of mass psychology.
Yeah.
Like conditioning.
That's exactly how the source material presents it, a kind of collective psychological conditioning delivered through unforgettable imagery.
The power, then, is in making the trauma, or maybe the triumph, universally shared.
Yeah.
Instantly recognizable, right?
Yeah.
And the sources point to some of the biggest moments of the last century.
They really do. They start with JFK's assassination. The focus isn't so much on who did it, but how it happened.
The setting.
Precisely. A public parade designed to be seen. And crucially, it was filmed the Zapruder film, etched into memory. That visual record ensured the shock, the trauma, was globally imprinted.
The public nature itself is part of the ritual's power. Creates a reference point everyone shares.
That's the argument. And it's not just about destruction or trauma. They apply the same logic to moments of great achievement, like the moon landing.
Yeah, that was maybe the ultimate visual performance of human power, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Broadcast live, globally synchronized. It was presented as mankind achieving something almost godlike.
Transcending earthly limits.
Right. And in the context of this theory, it serves as a ritual demonstrating human creative power. It sort of sets the stage for this recurring theme in the sources, the idea of replacing divine limits with human tech and willpower, the New World Order mythology.
And fast forward a few decades, 9/11. The sources frame this not just as a horrific attack, but again as a performance, a devastatingly powerful visual one.
They really focus on the visual elements, the symmetry of the towers, the way it unfolded live on television. It wasn't just the collapse, it was this televised narrative of destruction, of vulnerability.
Designed for maximum emotional impact, maximum remembrance.
Exactly, and that high visibility ensures the event's symbols, the falling towers, the Pentagon strike, just endure. Whether those symbols represent fear or unity or the need for more security, the image itself becomes the primary message.
Here, the implication of this first pillar is pretty significant. The sources are claiming that the visual, instantaneous, global nature of these events makes them incredibly effective tools for whoever the architects are supposed to be.
Tools for modern power structures. They're not just passive history, they're actively shaping our collective myths, our social narrative.
It's like myth-making in real time.
That's a good way to put it. The visibility locks in the symbols, the limo in Dallas, the flag on the moon, the smoke plumes in New York. And, according to the sources, these powerful images tend to override maybe more complex or inconvenient facts or alternative explanations. For the alleged architects, the ritual effect is everything.
Okay, so if spectacle creates the stage, the shared experience, how do these alleged architects sign their work? How do they leave a mark beneath the surface? That takes us from the public performance to the hidden code.
Exactly. And this is where it gets, as you said, really interesting. We move into numerology, the idea that numbers hold hidden symbolic meaning.
Right.
And the number that keeps recurring, the absolute centerpiece, is 33.
33. Why that number? How does it connect?
Well, the focus on 33 is really the core of the argument for intentional design, for a hidden hand. The first big example, the one cited most often, is JFK's assassination date, November 22, 1963.
Okay, 11221963. How do they get 33 out of that? Because it's not immediately obvious.
Right. The sources use specific numerological techniques. One common method they point to involves adding the month and day. 11 plus 22 equals 33.
Okay, that's straightforward enough.
Sometimes they use more complex reductions, like adding digits of the year, 1 plus 9 plus 6 plus 3 equals 19, and then combining or manipulating these sums in specific ways taught in numerology to reveal what they call master numbers, like 11, 22, and especially 33.
So it might involve a few steps or different methods depending on the event.
Yes, the methodology can seem, well, selective to outsiders. But the sources insist the goal is always to uncover this specific number, 33, arguing it's like a signature left behind by the event's designers.
The hidden fingerprint in the public data. But they claim this isn't just JFK, right? This pattern, this number 33, allegedly shows up elsewhere.
Oh, yes. They look for it in other major world-altering events. Take the moon landing again. That was 1969.
How does 33 fit there?
It's a bit more esoteric. The sources link 1969 to something called triangular numbers. These are numbers that can form a perfect triangle, like 1, 3, 6, 10, 15. The argument is that 1969 symbolically relates to the sequence 1, 3, 6, 9, which are either triangular numbers themselves or closely related in esoteric geometry.
Okay, that's definitely more complex.
It is. The claim is this connects the moon landing not just to technological achievement, but to ancient hidden geometric knowledge supposedly used by these architects. It links back to foundational principles.
And inevitably, we have to come back to 9/11. How does 33 feature there, according to these sources?
Well, 9/11 is seen as intrinsically symbolic just by the date itself. 911 is the emergency number, right? So it immediately codes the event as crisis.
Obvious connection there.
But within these sources, the number 33 is often linked to this idea of transformation through crisis, the emergency needed to bring about change.
So 9/11 is the crisis, setting the stage for transformation.
That's the interpretation. And they also perform numerological calculations on the date itself, 9/11/2001, using various systems like gematria or adding digits, 9 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 0 plus 0 plus 1 equals 14, which isn't 33, so other methods are cited, to try and derive 33, though often just the 9111 emergency code connection is presented as sufficient proof of design.
Okay, so 33 is presented as this recurring magic number. But why 33? What's so special about it that makes it the supposed sacred code for these alleged secret societies?
According to the material we're looking at, 33 carries enormous weight, both spiritually and geometrically. In some numerology systems, it's called the master-teacher number, signifying high spiritual attainment.
Master-teacher.
But its specific significance for the alleged architects, and the sources usually point fingers squarely at the Freemasons here, is claimed to come directly from their own structure.
Right, the 33 degrees of initiation. We'll get more into that later, I assume.
Exactly. The number literally defines their hierarchy. But it's more than just an organizational number. The sources argue 33 is also deeply tied to geopolitical symbolism through geometry.
Geometry, how so?
They often point out that two equilateral triangles, each with three sides, right, when overlaid, form the six-pointed Star of David or the hexagram.
Okay, I see the visual. 2 triangles, 6 points.
So you have 3 and 3, making the symbolic 33 connection, but it also connects this supposedly sacred number directly to a major geopolitical symbol, specifically one associated with the state of Israel and Jerusalem.
Wow. So it's trying to weave together the math, the spirituality, and the politics all into one number.
That's precisely the argument, that this geometric link charges the number 33 with meanings of creation, transformation, spiritual significance, and high political stakes all at once, making it, in their view, the perfect signature for events designed to reshape the world.
Okay, so we have the spectacle, the visible performance. We have the numerology, the hidden code of 33. Now, this third pillar, this one is maybe the most visually striking claim in the source material. You mentioned a geographic link.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the sources introduce this geographic element, claiming that the 33rd degree north latitude acts like a connecting thread, linking many of these defining historical events across continents.
The 33rd parallel north. So not just the number 33 in dates, but 33 on the actual map of the Earth.
Exactly. It's presented not just as a line on a map, but as this almost preordained line of, well, of fate, you could say. The sources argue this latitude symbolizes both the birthplaces of civilization and the sites of modern destruction,
Birth and death on the same line.
linking humanity's dawn and potentially its downfall along one single symbolic geographic marker. It's a powerful claim.
It really is. A chilling claim, frankly, that the most profound moments, both creative and destructive, were somehow cited along this specific line. We definitely need the details here. Which specific sites are they citing? The contrast must be key.
Absolutely critical to the theory. Let's start with the sites in the Middle East, representing the birthplaces or ancient centers. The 33rd parallel runs near or through Baghdad.
Capital of the Islamic Golden Age, a center of knowledge.
Right. It also passes close to Damascus, which is often called one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. Ancient history right there.
Markers of civilization, religion, philosophy.
Correct. And then, crucially, Jerusalem. While it sits just a bit north of the 33rd parallel, the sources invariably include it, arguing it's symbolically aligned with this axis of power, the holiest city for Christians and Jews.
Okay, so those represent the ancient world, the foundations.
They set the stage, allegedly, for human spiritual and societal growth. Then, the sources argue, this same line jumps across the Atlantic straight to the sites of modern destruction and transformation in the U.S.
Reinforcing that duality you mentioned. Creation and chaos, life and death, all tied to 33.
This is where they really try to lock in the pattern. Moving west, the 33rd parallel is said to pass directly over Dallas, Texas.
The site of JFK's assassination, linking the political trauma back to the line.
Exactly. Then further west, it intersects the Trinity site in New Mexico, and this is precise.
The location of the very first atomic bomb test in July 1945.
The birthplace of the nuclear age. A site of literal physical transformation of matter, unlocking the power of the atom located right on that line.
Wow, okay.
And then the sources point to the terrifying application of that power. Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, the only two cities ever attacked with nuclear weapons.
Are they right on the 33rd parallel?
Hiroshima is very close, just slightly north. Nagasaki is a bit further south, closer to the 32nd. However, the sources consistently group them together and claim they fall critically near or are symbolically linked to this 33rd parallel axis.
So Baghdad, Jerusalem, Dallas, Trinity Site, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, all presented as points on this single line of latitude.
It's a jarring list, isn't it? That juxtaposition, ancient holy cities and sites of nuclear horror, is absolutely central to the source's argument about the symbolic power of this line.
It definitely forces you to pause.
Yeah.
But what evidence do the sources offer that this alignment is intentional? That someone is actively managing events to fall on this line, rather than it just being a massive, perhaps statistically improbable coincidence of history?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the sources don't offer empirical proof of active management, like a leaked document saying, let's do this on the 33rd.
Right. No smoking gun memo.
No. The argument relies entirely on the pattern itself, on the sheer weight of the claimed coincidences. They argue that seeing the number 33 appear in the organizational structure, the Masonic degrees, in the numerology of the key dates, and in the geography of the events is, in itself, evidence of intentional design.
So the pattern is the proof, in their view.
Correct. It creates this narrative of geographical destiny, a preset path for world transformation, linking ancient roots to the modern technological apocalypse, all marked by the number 33.
Which inevitably brings us back to the who. If these are orchestrated rituals using symbols, numbers, geography, who are the alleged architects? The sources point fingers, you said?
They do, directly and consistently at secret societies, and the one named most prominently is Freemasonry.
Okay. And the link is, well, the obvious one is the 33 degrees you mentioned.
That's the structural anchor. The sources allege that Freemasonry provides not just the secrecy, but the hierarchical framework and, crucially, the philosophical blueprint needed for this kind of long-term global manipulation. The 33 degrees of initiation aren't just ranks, they see it as a symbolic ladder of enlightenment.
And the sources claim there's a difference between what the public sees and what happens at the higher levels.
Very much so. They detail this tiered teaching philosophy. The lower levels, the teachings focus on things most people would find positive. Morality, charity, brotherhood, community service. That's the public face.
Okay, the exoteric side.
Right. But the sources claim that as initiates climb higher, especially past the 30th degree towards 33, they encounter what's called a progressive revelation.
What do you mean?
Meaning the true, hidden, or esoteric purpose is allegedly revealed. And according to these sources, that purpose is radical. It's a philosophy based on the idea that humanity can, and perhaps should, replace God.
Replace God, how?
By mastering the powers traditionally attributed to the divine, specifically the powers of creation and destruction. It's presented as a kind of self-deification project for humanity, led by these initiates.
That's a massive claim. Do the sources specify how humanity is supposed to achieve this mastery or replacement?
Yes, they detail 3 specific methods or domains where this mastery is supposedly being pursued, and these align quite neatly with the historical events we've been discussing.
Okay, what are the 3?
The first method cited is transforming matter. This is about achieving total control over the physical universe, the ultimate expression of this.
Nuclear energy.
Exactly. Unleashing the power locked within the atom, which, as we noted, was first tested, Trinity, and deployed, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, on or near that symbolic 33rd parallel. It represents mastery over physical creation and destruction.
Okay, transforming matter. What's the second method?
The second is described as killing gods. Now, this sounds dramatic.
Yeah, very. What does it mean in this context?
It's interpreted symbolically, not literally killing deities, but eliminating the old order, challenging and dismantling the established power structures, especially those based on traditional religious authority or divine right.
And JFK fits in here how? Why is he the symbol?
According to this theory, JFK represented a charismatic, powerful leader embodying a certain kind of hope or traditional authority. His public assassination, the spectacle on the 33rd parallel, is framed as a ritualistic elimination.
To show that no earthly power is sacred, that the architect's power is higher.
That's the alleged message, a demonstration that the old rules, the old sanctities, no longer apply, that the architects can remove even the most powerful figures in plain sight. It's a ritual of power assertion.
Okay, transforming matter,
Yeah.
killing gods. What's the third area of mastery?
The third is creating life. This focuses on mastering biological and, perhaps more importantly, intellectual creation.
So things like genetic engineering.
That's mentioned, yes. But the sources often point most urgently towards the development of artificial intelligence, AI,
Ah,
creating intelligence.
exactly. The argument is that by creating non-biological intelligence that could potentially rival or even surpass human intellect, the architects would be claiming the ultimate creative power, the power to spark consciousness itself. This is framed as the final step in the self-deification project.
So it all weaves together. Transform matter, nuclear, kill gods, eliminate old authority, like JFK, create life, AI. It forms this narrative where these societies see themselves as, inheriting divine power. That's the mythology presented, that they are guiding humanity away from subservience to the old world, faith-based, traditional, limited, and toward a new world.
And this new world is.
Humanistic, scientific, technocratic, and, crucially, globally unified under their enlightened guidance. The idea is to bring heaven to earth, but a version of heaven designed and controlled by man.
And this leads to a specific political goal you mentioned.
Yes, the sources are very specific here. The ultimate stated political endgame of this centuries-long project is alleged to be making Jerusalem the capital of a unified world government.
Jerusalem, back to that symbolic center. That's a staggering ambition. How did the sources suggest this could even be achieved? A unified world government.
Well, the sources often link this final step to prerequisite chaos. The idea that global unification often follows periods of massive global conflict or catastrophe.
Order out of chaos.
Precisely. And chillingly, some sources speculate that this necessary global conflict could be triggered by an event in the Middle East designed to inflame religious tensions to an unbearable degree. The potential destruction of key religious sites is sometimes mentioned, specifically citing the possibility of the destruction of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem.
Good heavens. The idea being that such an event would ignite a global religious war.
Creating the crisis, the chaos, that would then necessitate and justify a unified, probably heavily technocratic global security state, governed symbolically from Jerusalem, the heart of the Abrahamic faiths, now repurposed for this new world order.
It's an incredibly elaborate, far-reaching, and frankly disturbing theory. If, and it's a huge if, organizations were trying to coordinate things on this scale over decades across continents, how could they possibly maintain the secrecy, the influence? The sources must address that, right?
They do. They identify several key mechanisms they claim are essential for maintaining both secrecy and long-term influence.
Okay, what are they? How does it supposedly work?
The first mechanism is internal, fundamental to how these groups are allegedly structured. Compartmentalization. We touched on this with the 33 degrees.
Need to know basis.
Exactly. Each level, each initiate, supposedly knows only what's necessary for their specific role or task within their degree. No single person, perhaps except for a tiny circle at the very top, has the full picture.
So, even if someone lower down defects or talks,
They can't reveal the grand plan because they simply don't know it. The secret is protected by its fragmented nature, like a jigsaw puzzle where each person only holds one piece.
makes sense structurally. What else? How do they ensure loyalty, especially higher up?
The sources point to a potent combination of incentives and, well, darker methods. On the one hand, power, privilege, access to hidden knowledge, these increase dramatically as you ascend the ranks. Strong incentives to stay in line and keep climbing.
That carrot? Is there stick?
There is, according to these sources. They allege that, particularly at the higher degrees, initiates may be required to participate in or become complicit in activities that compromise them morally, financially, legally, blackmail, essentially.
So they become trapped.
That's the claim. They become bound by mutual compromise, ensuring unwavering loyalty because the cost of betrayal, personal ruin, exposure is too high. They're locked into silence.
Okay, that covers internal secrecy and loyalty. But how do they operate externally without the public catching on? You mentioned earlier the public itself might be a barrier.
Yes, the sources called this the public barrier, and they attribute it mainly to confirmation bias.
Meaning people see what they want to see.
Or rather, people resist information that clashes too strongly with their existing beliefs. The sources argue that the average person finds concepts like orchestrated global rituals just too bizarre, too unsettling, too conspiracy theory.
So they dismiss it out of hand.
Exactly. They prefer comfortable, familiar explanations, comfortable lies, as the source material puts it over these unsettling truths. So, even if presented with patterns like the 33rd parallel connections, the default reaction is ridicule or dismissal as mere coincidence.
So ironically, the public's own psychological defenses against uncomfortable ideas end up protecting the secrecy.
That's the argument. It makes genuine exposure almost impossible because the threshold for belief is so high. The sheer audacity of the alleged plan becomes its own camouflage.
Okay, one last piece on mechanics. How does this coordination happen practically across different countries, different systems over long periods? Where do these societies hide to operate?
The sources argue that the perfect host organism for these kinds of secret operations is bureaucracy. Large, complex bureaucratic systems, think governments, militaries, intelligence agencies, even multinational corporations.
Why bureaucracy?
Because bureaucracies are naturally siloed, they're hierarchical, compartmentalized, and departments often don't talk to each other effectively. Information stays within channels.
Ah, so the structure of the bureaucracy mirrors the compartmentalization within the secret society itself.
Precisely. It allows the alleged architects to place individuals in key positions across different isolated departments, say one person in finance, another in intelligence, another in cultural institutions.
And because those departments don't naturally coordinate or share broadly,
no one connects the dots. An action taken by an agent in Department A seems unrelated to an action by an agent in Department B. Only those at the very top of the secret hierarchy, who placed them there, see the overall pattern and purpose. The bureaucracy itself masks the coordination.
it provides the perfect cover. Okay, Before we wrap up, we should probably circle back to the number 33 itself. The sources don't just link it to these specific events. They try to build a much broader case for its significance, right? Showing it pop up everywhere.
Yes, they dedicate significant effort to demonstrating what they see as the ubiquity of 33, arguing it's woven into history, religion, even human biology. It's an attempt to show this isn't just some code used by one group, but a fundamental number of the cosmos.
To make the pattern seem less coincidental, more universal, what examples do they use?
They pull from various religious and historical references. A major one from Christianity. Jesus Christ is traditionally said to have been crucified at 33 years old.
A foundational event in Western culture.
Absolutely. Then, looking at the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, they highlight that the word Elohim, a key name for God, allegedly appears exactly 33 times in the book of Genesis, the story of creation.
Linking 33 directly to divinity and creation.
That's the intention. They also point to figures of kingship and rule. King David, a central figure in Judaism and Christianity, founder of the Judean dynasty, is cited as having ruled in Jerusalem for 33 years.
Okay, so links to major figures and texts in Abrahamic religions. Do they look further afield?
Yes, they try to show universality. For instance, they often note that Hinduism recognizes 33 main deities or types of deities, the devas. The goal is to position 33 as a sacred number across different major world civilizations.
Not just a Western or Masonic thing. And they even bring biology into it.
They do. This is presented as a kind of ultimate proof, embedding the code in our very bodies. The source points to the human spine,
The backbone.
which typically consists of 33 distinct vertebrae at birth, though some fuse later, the central pillars supporting the human body, mirroring this supposedly central cosmic number.
Wow, okay, religion, history, biology. But the connection that seems to tie all the threads together, the secret society, the politics, the numerology, the world-altering events, is the one involving the U.S. presidency, isn't it?
Yes, this is often presented as the absolute linchpin, the smoking gun correlation that, for proponents of this theory, defies coincidence. It involves Harry S. Truman.
Okay, Truman. President after FDR oversaw the end of WWII.
Correct. Harry Truman was the 33rd president of the United States.
The 33rd president. Okay, I see where this is going.
And the sources emphasize heavily Truman was also a documented 33rd degree Freemason, the highest degree.
So a 33rd degree Mason becomes the 33rd U.S. president.
At the exact historical moment that humanity unleashes the power of the atom. Truman was the president who authorized the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki events located near the 33rd parallel.
So the sources see this as the ultimate convergence. The number 33, president, Masonic degree, the location 33 parallel, the act, transforming matter via nuclear power, and the organization, Freemasonry, all aligning perfectly in one person and one world-changing decision.
That's precisely how it's framed. As undeniable proof of the hidden hand, the symbolic signature writ large on history, they argue the odds of all these 33s converging by chance are astronomically low.
And just to round it out, they even find reflections in pop culture.
Yes, they sometimes extend the pattern further, noting prominent athletes who wore the number 33 figures like Scottie Pippen, Larry Bird, Shaquille O'Neal. The sources sometimes claim, often without firm proof, that some of these figures were also Freemasons or were somehow encouraged to adopt the number, continuing its symbolic dissemination into the public consciousness.
Oh, quite a web they weave.
It really is. But if you boil it all down, the source material we've examined today puts forward this single overarching thesis. Modern history, as we know it, isn't just a series of accidents. Instead, it's defined by rituals disguised as world events. These rituals, marked by spectacle, the number 33, and the 33rd parallel, symbolically enact and advance humanity's alleged transition away from serving God towards becoming gods themselves.
Right. That's a core argument we've tracked through the spectacles like JFK and 9/11, the numerology of 33, the geography of that parallel. So the ultimate takeaway for you, the listener, from these sources is that these iconic events aren't presented as random history.
No, they're framed as carefully designed, mythic performances. And through this ongoing performance, the theory claims powerful hidden groups, primarily identified as high-level Freemasons, are revealing their plan.
A plan to essentially replace God with man, establishing a new global order, one that merges science, symbolism, and political power under a single esoteric vision. The spectacle makes it memorable. The number 33 serves as the signature.
That's the narrative in a nutshell.
Okay, so this leaves us and you with a final thought to mull over based on everything we've unpacked. The source material relentlessly uses the recurrence of 33, across geography, religion, politics, even biology, to argue for a hidden design, a hidden hand. What strikes you as the potentially most potent link they present? Is it the geographic alignment, seeing Dallas, the Trinity site, Hiroshima, all sited along that 33rd parallel? Or is it the symbolic convergence around Harry Truman, the 33rd president, a 33rd degree Mason, authorizing nuclear transformation near that same parallel? Where does pattern recognition end and belief in intentional design begin? Something to think about.